the premium difference.
Wide from Alzate, March! A golden opportunity. Make it 3 points to Manchester United.
Tucked away by Dominic Calvert-Lewin.
It's 3! Through the crowd and in by Abraham!
Bamford with the header. 1-0 Leeds United.
Fired back spectacularly by Riyad Mahrez. And there's Vardy. Oh, how clever's that? And Maddison. Oh, that's glorious!
And Bowen, it's brilliant. Their season is up and running in some style.
Put in by Lucas Moura. This to level things in North London. And he's managed it.
Grealish is onside here. Here's Danny Ings for Southampton.
And Jota scores. If only the Kop were here to welcome their new star.
Hello and welcome along to the analysis show. Coming up over the next 90 minutes, we shall dissect all of the major issues, all the big talking points after another frantic weekend of Premier League action. Joining me in the studio, Owen Hargreaves, of course, a Premier League winner. Owen, have you enjoyed what you've been seeing so far?
Well, I think we're seeing plenty of goals so far. We saw them last weekend and again this week. I thought Brighton played exceptional against Manchester United and deserved to get at least something from the game. Who would have had Palace and Everton down as top of the table at that point? Calvert-Lewin as the top scorer. That's a surprise. I think you think Chelsea, the issues that they have already early on in the season. So there's so many interesting storylines. I've been really impressed with Leeds and Marcelo Bielsa, the way they've gone at everyone.
They're really fascinating watch, Leeds.
They're brilliant, honestly. So they go after everyone. But the big surprise, obviously, City. Playing in that way at home, dropping points, conceding 5 goals. That was a huge surprise. And the only real consistent team, like last season so far, is Liverpool. They're absolutely cruising along.
They certainly are. Let's have a look at the table then. Owen, let's check out. We know that it is very early days, but we always like to see a table. And for those teams that aren't used to sitting on the top, although Leicester have had spells there, of course they have. It's good to see. What I like about what I'm seeing in the top 6. I'm loving that, Owen. My old team Villa there doing ever so well with a couple of wins. But seeing Palace there, as you mentioned, Leeds, even Newcastle up there in the top 10. That's good for everybody concerned.
Well, I think the point is they got to get the points on the board now because we know Leicester, they'll probably drop off like they did last season. Everton especially. Villa, I think a lot of teams had them down as one to potentially go down. Obviously West Brom and Fulham, they're the favourites. People were saying Villa, could that be one of those? So I think if you can get some points on the board now, I think it stands them in good chance. Palace, the issues they had towards the end of last season, I think they'll be delighted. They've had a great start.
They have. Last year, they had a horrible start, didn't they? Let's have a little look at the bottom end then. Of course, not such great reading for one or two of those down there, particularly Fulham and Sheffield United and Burnley, yet to get a point on the board, Owen. Any other major concerns in the bottom half of the table?
I think United and City, I think they've been a bit of a surprise that they've struggled. I mean, United probably should have lost the game against Brighton. They were so well played. I think for Fulham and Scott Parker, looking at them, they've been so weak virtually in every game, and they got defensive issues. They don't score goals, so only 3 games in, I know, but it looks like it might be a very long season for Scott Parker.
Got some interesting stats here, Owen, to have a look at. These are like match week stats. Match week 1, obviously 8 matches, 23 goals the first weekend, of course. First half goals, 10, second half goals, 13, etc., etc. Penalties were quite apparent in the first week. In match week 2, everything kind of went off the charts in terms of goals. And again, penalties. And in match week 3, we actually had 100 goals scored already. That was Alexandre Lacazette's goal at Anfield last night, which we'll come on to. Again, another 7 penalties conceded. So it looks like it's going to be a very open league with, as you said, tons of mistakes, tons of goals, lots of stuff that we're going to be talking about, as we will do in this show today, with regards to the rules and interpretation of the rules. It looks like we're in for a really kind of exciting time.
Yeah, I think we're in for plenty of goals. I think we see that already. I mean, if you look at the table there, match week 2, 44 goals, so averaging 4.4, in that week there. The highest ever is 2.8. So I think at this point we're at 3.7.
Yeah.
So it's almost a complete goal more. So I think I'd be surprised if that continued. I think offensively the teams are all trying to play, but defensively we're seeing some real poor mistakes. And also, as you said, the penalties is a huge one.
We're going to get stuck into a fair bit of that throughout the show today. OK, let's have a look at what's coming up over the next 85 minutes or so. We're going to look at the champions last night, of course. A big, powerful, positive performance from Jurgen Klopp's men last night. We're also going to focus on problems for Manchester City. Pep Guardiola with a frown on that face right now after his performance at the weekend. And of course, as ever, right now, handball, the whole handball ruling is dominating proceedings. Jose certainly wasn't impressed at the weekend. We do want to hear from you, of course, throughout today's show. #PLFans. The floor is yours. If you've got something you want to say about anything you've seen, please contact us because Leroy Rosina, who's upstairs in our studio, is waiting for you. Leroy, what's happening?
Well, there's lots happening, Andy. As you said, yourself and Owen are going to be going through everything that happened at Anfield. Great performance from Liverpool, and Arsenal did OK as well. Man City's and Chelsea's deficiencies defensively, that's going to be interesting. But the handball rule, how do you feel about it? Are you as frustrated as a lot of people, or do you totally agree with it? Should managers get on with it? Should players get used to it? Let me know using the #PLFanzone. For terms and conditions, make sure you check the privacy policy on the official Premier League website. Make sure you get in touch.
Great stuff, Leroy. Thank you very much. But we're going to start at Anfield last night. The champions against Arsenal in a fixture that is notorious for producing goals.
No fixture over time has bulged nets as prolifically as this one has. Maitland-Niles saw instead Willian. It came off Robertson and it's scrambled in by Lacazette. It took them next to no time. Lifted in by Alexander-Arnold and Robertson scores! A moment of personal atonement. In by Alexander-Arnold, back out by Luis, and Jota scores this time. So the champions remain perfect. Good contest, it always is when these two meet. The final score at Anfield, Liverpool 3, Arsenal 1.
Yeah, they were full value for that. Arsenal played their part in what was a good game to watch. That's the best and most convincing performance I've seen from any team so far, Owen, that Liverpool performance last night.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they are the best. You think about the way they played against Chelsea. They dominated that, in terms of possession, in terms of shots and chances, and winning the game quite comfortably. And I thought, again, we're talking about Arsenal and Arteta. They're a possession-based side. Liverpool dominated possession again. So this Liverpool team seems to be growing in confidence, getting more and more dominant, even against some of the best teams in this division. You think about Arsenal and Chelsea. Liverpool are just too good for everyone right now.
Yeah. We've got some clips here of the variation now in the Liverpool game. Look, we've seen them going back to front a lot since Jurgen Klopp's been at the club. And why wouldn't he with Salah and Mane and the outstanding pace that they have? But there's so many more ways developing, Owen, where they're now able to pick you off.
Yeah, I think the one thing we should highlight is the fact that just spacing is one of the most important things in the game of football. In terms of the way Pep and Klopp play, they want to get the spacing right. So if you look at Mane there, and that Salah, Firmino drops in, yeah? So they have this little shape where they stay high and wide. He can drop in. That's Robertson, that's Trent. And that's your midfield three. So basically, they're just looking for what is the best option, because they know all the options. So depending on what Arsenal give them, they'll play the pass.
What's the best vehicle to get the ball out?
What is it? And right now, it looks like it could be Van Dijk, but the players have to decide, don't they? They have to decide where the ball's going to go. And depending on what Arsenal do, watch this there. Robertson already knows, doesn't he? He's on his way. But watch how that affects Mane.
Yeah.
And this is all the players. This is not Klopp deciding. They get the setup right, and bang, that easy, Andy. And that's why I love the fact, great coach in terms of Jurgen Klopp, sets the players up, lets them play, but ultimately the players make the decision where they're going to pass the ball on the pitch. And you're right, there's so much variation to their game.
Yeah, again, Firmino then picking the ball up, and all of a sudden, Owen, just a simple bit of movement, and they've got themselves in between Arsenal's midfield and that back three. And so they've got themselves absolutely a 3-on-3 situation, which is entirely where they want to be.
Yeah, they're just so precise, they're so good in possession. And when we get into these areas, we know they love to flood the box. So
yeah.
I love the fact that they can mix it up depending on what the opposition do.
This one, you mentioned about they played short there and there's some good movement. Then all of a sudden, this guy can start dictating from here, because lots of teams are able to hit 60 and 70-yard balls. City do it with the goalkeeper, don't they?
Yeah.
City do it with Ederson.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden, so you've just seen a couple of short passes, and then if they feel the heat from the Arsenal players, how about that from Van Dijk? And again, you've got yourself in that scenario. You're now behind Arsenal's central midfield players, and you've effectively got, I mean, if I run that on a little bit, you're now 4-on-3 almost.
Well, and we all talk about everybody presses, but that beats the press instantly, doesn't it? One fabulous ball. And that's why I know Van Dijk's the best defender in the world, but he's one of the best passers of the ball as well as a defender. So
yeah.
Get it up to your top players and let them affect the game. But they're so good at finding what it needs in certain moments.
This was second half again. Most centre-halves, Owen, in this scenario are just happy to just lay a little ball here, Van Dijk to Gomez, and then maybe come out here to Trent. But again, Virgil van Dijk, his passing last night was just pretty incredible. Look, that's inch perfect. And then that guy can do that. He can hit that first time. You know, they're so good. And I'm noticing and seeing a different sort of Liverpool emerging here as well, where they've now got the confidence to mix their game up like that.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think everybody expects Liverpool to play and get it down and play. We're seeing a lot more of these switches and playing a bit more vertical at times. And I think that's credit to Jurgen Klopp. He's seen what teams are doing to them, and he say, right, OK, you want to come press us? We can play over the top real quick.
The press has been a fundamental part of what Klopp's been about ever since he's arrived at the club, and nothing has changed in that respect. It's kind of all or nothing, Owen, isn't it? They're prepared to go absolutely like a full court press in basketball, you know, where everyone's man for man almost all over the field. Got a nice example of that here. Arsenal, to their credit, wanting to play out, and as soon as that ball is played by Leno, they're off and they're coming after you.
Yeah, and I think as a player, when you get the sense that the press works, all the players buy in instantly, because everybody, you hunt in packs. And they make it so hard. There's no time on the ball. In the end, you just clear your lines. And that is much better. You're better off doing that than playing a bad ball into midfield, where if they get it there, it leads to a goal straight away. You could be in
trouble. Well, they actually do that in this next clip, Owen. There's one more where, again, just there, this is the press we're talking about. How Liverpool now, look, the ball's in open play. They're really going for Arsenal, trying to play their way out. Short pass there, and they're on top here.
That is class. It really is. Every player's running forward. Every player's getting after someone. The intensity of the press is what makes it so good. You think about United, the way they played against Brighton. The only person that pressed from the front six was Bruno. The rest of them are just kind of the passengers. Klopp demands that the players, when they turn it over like Robertson did there, they're just on the front foot. Try and win it back as quick as you can, because when you win it here, then basically it's only, 30 yards to the goal, rather than being sat back all the way down here.
If you don't do that in a Jurgen Klopp team, you wouldn't play, would you?
Go play somewhere else, yeah. No, it doesn't, you won't accept it. At Dortmund, they were the exact same. They went after, I think they ran about 1 kilometre more per game than every other player. So his players ran 1 kilometre more, because he demands that the players work. That's why they're champions, by the way. They're a great team. They got great players, but they work harder than pretty much every team, and that's why they're so good. Yeah,
let's have a look at their goals last night. There's some good ones in there, of course, and Arsenal, of course, scored against the run of play. It's got to be said, but Liverpool didn't panic. There's Van Dijk spraying it around. I love this pass here. This looks like that. This pass, as you can see, we can see Keita there just in a little pocket of space, and I love this ball from Trent, who's able to get it off his chest and just pop it in there straight away first time. Little bit of good fortune here, Owen, where the ball's bobbling around, but they managed to just wriggle out of that. Firmino drops it wide. You can see the linesman flagging for a free kick. Referee happy to wave play on. Once Mo Salah is getting at you in the box, we're going to come on to this situation a lot today, because there was a number of these we saw over the weekend where defenders are kind of wrong side, tempted to have a go at the ball. Tierney doesn't there. He lets Mo Salah go. Leno flaps it a bit, and there's Sadio Mane to get the team back in it. But again, it's just fast, direct, and very powerful. Big switch from Van Dijk.
Yeah, that was a big feature. They must have looked at something Arsenal do and thought, right, that big switch, we're going to get in there, get it into Salah as quick as we can. I don't think he gets enough credit, Mo Salah, as good as he is. He looks so sharp again, getting into the goals. But again, when the ball gets wide, they flood the box. Robertson with a terrific goal, and they're just relentless, Liverpool.
Yeah, Diogo Jota on as a second-half substitute. I think he's a really good piece of business, this guy. I can see him doing very well at Liverpool, and he'll be delighted. Do you know what I did see, actually? Just before he scored his goal, just before he got his goal, Owen, and he'd only been on the field about 2 or 3 minutes. He actually, there was a ball bouncing in the box. He was just about to hit it, and Salah come and took it off of him. You know, almost like, listen, if you want to get in the queue, you're playing for the champions now, you know, in terms of scoring goals.
It's still Mo's team, isn't it? But I love the fact that they didn't sign a ton of players, but think about Thiago, what a player he is. Jota, what a player he is. Michael Edwards, the last 3 years, has put on a masterclass in terms of being a sporting director.
Very good point, very good point. Arsenal, from a Mikel Arteta point of view, what will he have thought about his team's performance last night?
I think they're getting stronger in terms of dealing with these games. You know, I think being away from home, I think before they were they didn't have enough, did they, Arsenal? You know, they always, at least they went down and they went down swinging. I think they're playing in Mikel's way, and they look better for it. Look, I think they played good, but Liverpool are just better, I think, but Arsenal are in a really good place.
Ultimately, when you look at this situation here, Ryan, where the ball's with Leno, and they're obviously going to play their way out, as we know, ultimately, they've got these 3 guys up front that they want to try and get involved and get amongst the action as soon as they can. If we watch here, the goalkeeper goes to David Luiz. There's a ball there from Maitland-Niles, back to Tierney. There's a little bit of fortune there with that Aubameyang flick. He might have been looking for Maitland-Niles there, but it drops to Xhaka, and this is a great ball.
This ball kills any press. You know, we saw the Van Dijk one over the top. Watch this ball in between the lines to Lacazette. You know, Van Dijk could probably be a bit touch higher, but that puts you under pressure. And now we see teams, when it goes in there, that they play one touch, so you don't turn over possession.
Yeah.
And then you get it into there, and then Liverpool end up chasing. But great way to beat the press, and that's what Mikel wants. And then once you get up here, you got to make it count.
Because they're, Owen, actually, look, I mean, they're actually 5v4 here, where they've committed people forward. So, and again, if you get the champions in a situation like that, you've got to be ruthless. Get a bit of luck, don't they?
Yeah, they get luck. I mean, Robertson's probably just in between 2 minds. Maybe Van Dijk, he's in between his sight, and he maybe puts him off. He makes a mistake, which we don't normally see, but...
Second half, they played further up the field, and they made a couple of subtle changes. They brought Ceballos on, and he's got a different variation in his game.
Beautiful player. I love this. Look, no pressure on the ball. Lovely slide in.
Just take that back, Owen, one step. I just want to take that back just before he hits that, because we know Alisson makes the save. But again, what's interesting here from a Liverpool point of view, they have such confidence. Look, they're holding quite a high line. No pressure at all on that ball. Nothing at all.
No, and I think Klopp will probably say, you can't squeeze up if one of these midfield 3 don't press the ball.
Yeah.
You know, there's too much time. And I love this ball from Ceballos. Credit Lacazette as well. Drops back, a little slide, gives him the eyes. That's beautiful. And credit Alisson, by the way.
Yeah,
comes off his line so quick.
He does.
That should have been a goal. Should have been a goal. Probably would have made it 2-2. But Alisson gets off his line.
Stands up.
That's brilliant. That reminds me of Neuer. Neuer at his best. Getting out there, forcing the attacker into a decision.
Yeah. I just wonder with that chance. I mean, Mikel Arteta said after the game, he said, look, you come to Anfield, you're not going to get a glut of chances and situations. When you get one like that, that was at 2-1.
Yeah.
That's for 2-2. And as dominant as Liverpool were, again, making the point of they want to hold a very high line. They want to play very aggressively on the front foot. As dominant as Liverpool were, again, making the point of they want to hold a very high line. They want to play very aggressively on the front foot. If they do that and they don't have pressure on the ball, good players in this Premier League can pick them off.
Yeah, and Bayern Munich won the Champions League playing that high line, didn't they? You know, they know they're going to turn over a lot of possession with that high line. The one thing I would say is if you get the forward passing and the forward running spot on, it beats any defence. And you saw it there from Ceballos and Lacazette. They got the timing perfect and should have scored. And he's right, it would have changed the game.
Yeah. Look, a massive game last night between two of the biggest Premier League teams, two of the biggest teams in world football right now, Liverpool and Arsenal. Leroy, let's find out what the fans have been saying around the world.
Well, they've been saying lots, but there's one that caught my eye, Andy, and it's from Hannah. And it's something that I was thinking during the game last night. She says, why does Arteta not play Albert centrally? In Albert, she means Aubameyang. And a great stat I heard this morning, that in the 5 games that Aubameyang's played against Liverpool in the Premier League, he's not had one shot on target. Not goal, not one shot on target. And the reason why I agree with Hannah that maybe that he should play in this central position is because not only from an attacking point of view, because it takes all the defensive responsibility away from him, but also defensively. You know, you look at down this right-hand side, this is where, Trent Alexander had all that space, and he was involved in 2 of the goals. I just wonder what you guys think. Just in certain games, could Aubameyang play up that central position?
You think so, Owen?
Yeah, I think Leroy's right. I think you'd like to see Aubameyang there. I'm not sure. Look, they didn't have much possession, Arsenal. I just thought they were a bit light in the centre of the park. You know, Elneny, Xhaka. You know, I don't think that works against
better teams,
against Liverpool. I just think, and that's probably why they're trying to address the centre of the park, whether it's Partey or I think they need somebody in there. But maybe I'm with Leroy. Maybe drop Lacazette.
Yeah.
Play Aubameyang up the top, and he dropped in Saka there. Saka can play as an attacker, can play as a wing-back.
Yeah.
Then maybe get another body in the middle of the pitch.
I was watching Leroy last night, and I thought that when I saw that chance that Lacazette failed to take, the one Owen and I have just been analysing there, and Aubameyang, to me, is still that striker. He doesn't have to be involved in the game here, there and everywhere, but he's got that kind of ice in his blood running through his veins where if he just gets one chance, I'd have backed him to score there.
Exactly, and he's the one player, look, everybody was, so delighted when he signed that new contract. He's the game changer. And you say to him, look, don't worry about running back into these areas. You know, you just pick up those spaces. And we always knew that there was going to be a space in behind Alexander-Arnold. But he could take up those spaces from a central area, almost cheap. But he's playing centre forward, so you don't want him running back. And I just thought that would cause Liverpool so many problems. In all honesty, I thought the Arsenal performance was so much better, guys. And maybe now just a few tweaks and they could be getting closer to Liverpool. What do you think?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, look, certainly, I think everybody gets the impression with Arsenal they are going in the right direction. There has been improvement, there's been change and improvement under Mikel Arteta. What else, Leroy? Anybody else? Anything else that's on everybody's mind?
Yeah, I got this from Fran, and said, how good were Rice and Souček against Wolves? I could see either or both of them get into the Liverpool or Arsenal side one day. Now, I thought they were excellent against Wolves. I think Declan Rice is outstanding, 21 years old. And Souček at 25, I mean, they signed him after, obviously, they stayed up last year. That was part of the deal to make sure that West Ham stayed in the league. I think it was between 15 and 19 million pounds. It's an absolute bargain. He's a Czech international, only 25 years old. And he's changed the dimension of that West Ham midfield. I don't know if you remember, Andy and Owen, but for the last couple of seasons, you say, look, West Ham have got no legs in midfield. But with these two, 25 and 21, I'm just going to pause it there. Do you remember what the role that Mark Noble's been playing for West Ham? He's almost been in that position at times, and he's been the first man to go and press the ball at times. But the reason they played him there is so because when they lose the ball, it's to come into the midfield area and supplement the midfield because they've not had enough legs. But with these two, especially you, Owen, obviously being a midfield player, what do you think? Does they give him a different dimension, being able to play as a two in there?
Yeah, I think Noble's been an unbelievable servant, but you're right, the fact they're still relying on him to get them out of trouble. I think Rice is the future, but I just think if you look at Souček, you're right, he's given so much athleticism, he's got that big physical frame, he loves to get in the box, but that's what he's good at as well. Very good. Tackling, in terms of, and that's a good partnership. Physically, that's a really good partnership, Rice and Souček. Then finding the blend. In this game, it was Fornals, and you got Antonio. Jared Bowen, what a fabulous pickup he's been for them in getting goals. So I think Moyes is still trying to find the blend between, all his players, and he's got a lot of players there. But I think if you think about that balance in midfield to go with an Antonio and Bowen is working.
I think, Leroy, as well, I think with these two, they play quicker than Mark Noble. I think Declan Rice wants to get it down, get it on the floor and give it to other people to go and... He's good at that. He's good at releasing other players in front of him. With respects to Mark Noble, as Owen says, brilliant servant for the club. I feel he slows things down a little bit for his team, certainly. But I thought Declan Rice against Wolves was incredible, Leroy. I thought he was magnificent.
Yeah, absolutely. And the used midfield players, just a very quick one, guys. Playing as a 2 is sometimes be a lot easier than playing as a 3. Because you know that, when they get in this sort of situation, you know that Declan Rice is going to drop into that midfield. And as the ball goes in the box, one stays and one goes. It just simplifies the game, and it makes it easy for them. If you're good athletes, as you two both were, let me just say you were excellent athletes, you could deal with that, couldn't you?
Are we not excellent athletes anymore,
Not
Leroy?
anymore.
Is that what you're trying to say?
Let's not kid ourselves, fellas, okay? You were once in the past.
Leroy, we've been in lockdown for a few months.
Yeah, we've got an excuse. Great stuff, Leroy. Don't forget, #PLFans. Get all of your questions, all those little subtle nuances that you might have seen over the weekend. Get them to Leroy and we'll discuss them on the show. Right, coming up in the next part, we're going to focus on Manchester City. Tricky tie on paper, of course, against Leicester, and it turned out to be a humbling afternoon for Pep.
South Africa will be desperate to right the wrongs from their 57-0 defeat.
I was thinking to myself, maybe, it's time to move on.
18 months ago, no one would have given this team a chance.
A country that so desperately needs to smile collectively has been given an emphatic reason to do so tonight.
See us winning the World Cup, lifting the World Cup. I believe it strongly.
Get DSTV Premium's dedicated channels for unmissable rugby, cricket, Grand Slams, majors, football and more. It's unrivaled access to the biggest sporting events in the world.
This is your champion.
That's the premium difference.
On Saturday.
It's a big lesson for us, and we will get a lot better.
A dramatic 3-goal turnaround secured the Blues a point at the Hawthorns. Can they build on that momentum when the Eagles flocked to Stamford Bridge? Then...
I feel bad for the guys. We have to try to see what you have to do to avoid it in the next time.
After conceding 5 goals for the first time as a manager, Pep Guardiola and his humble citizens visit West Yorkshire.
Harrison's ball in, Bamford with the header, and Leeds have surely won it.
Chelsea play Crystal Palace. Everton face Brighton. Leeds tackle Manchester City. And Newcastle host Burnley. The 2021 Premier League season on a dedicated SuperSport Premier League channel. We have the world's best football. Stay connected to DSTV. This broadcast is proudly brought to you by Discovery.
Defoe, he's got the pace to get away from Ferdinand. Chance here! Oh, brilliant stop! But there's the follow-up! And Tottenham have... 40 seconds from the restart. Van Persie. Oh, he's fed it through! Kagawa! Amazing! Goals! Flying in at both ends. Compensate with power and quality at the other. The jinx finally broken for Tottenham. Spurs have their first league win at Old Trafford for 23 years. A historic day for Andre Villas-Boas and the men from North London. It has been a thrill-a-minute ride. Final score at Old Trafford, Manchester United 2, Tottenham Hotspur Jubilant 3.
He's in the zone, and Bale is very much the star of the show.
Bale, not phased, takes the chance superbly.
Bale going it alone and scoring for Tottenham. A brilliant goal by Bale, the Welsh wizard.
When he's got that ball at his feet, running at the last man, there you saw a glimpse of the best of Gareth Bale. Gareth Bale, the name on the Tottenham lips.
Special goal from a special player. He scores when he wants. Right man, right place, always. Oh, what a goal! The dazzling
Welcome back to the analysis show. Well, we focused on Liverpool, haven't we? And of course, what an impressive performance that was from them last night. Time now to turn our attention to Manchester City at the Etihad. On paper, it looked a tricky tie against Leicester City, and that's the way it proved to be.
For each, so far so good. For one at least this evening, early season perfection will be stained. As De Bruyne delivers with depth towards Garcia, flicked out by Justin and fired back spectacularly by Riyad Mahrez. Vardy's up ahead of Barnes. Here is Jamie Vardy. Walker had a hand on his shoulder and it's a penalty. Vardy thrashes Leicester level. Tielemans, that's a really good ball. And here's Castagna, and there's Vardy. Oh, how clever's that? Barnes. Vardy, Garcia at his back, penalty. Vardy, hat-trick. And Maddison, oh, that's glorious! There's with the delivery, and Ake with the header, which just gives City a glimpse. Maddison drops a shoulder, Mendy has fouled him, and Leicester have another penalty. Tielemans, and Leicester City have hit Manchester City for 5.
Hands up, we could see that one happening. I don't think there'll be too many of you out there right now with your hands in the air. I mean, look, Leicester, Owen, decent side, let's not forget. Well coached by Brendan Rodgers, got some very, very talented boys in their team. But I didn't genuinely see that one coming, not after the start City had as well.
No, I don't think anybody would have seen that, especially in, 5 goals to concede at home. But, in terms of having Jamie Vardy is almost the perfect player against this Pep system where they're so high and the centre-backs are high. And, when you make mistakes as well, 3 penalties they gave away, it was just a recipe for disaster. But still, we were hoping the defence would improve from last season. And if you look at it, it hasn't. That defence isn't a team that's going to win the league.
Well, and the way they play, more often than not, is pretty much like this. You've got these guys playing a little bit narrow. De Bruyne can go wherever he likes, but these two guys are as high as you like, Owen, and invariably you've got Rodri and Fernandinho protecting Nathan Ake, good player, but still very early days for him at a big club. Not at a big club, sorry, he's played at Chelsea, but I mean a team that was wanting to win the title. And certainly for Garcia, I'm watching at the moment, and I'm not sure if these two guys are ready to be a pairing at the back for City.
Well, it just shows he actually doesn't really trust them, because if you think he's got Garcia and Ake, rarely does he play 2 sitters, 2 defensive, does he?
Correct.
So you've got Fernandinho and Rodrigo. But actually it just shows that if the fullbacks are in the wrong position, whether you play an extra midfielder in there or not, they're just not getting the balance right. And it just feels like it needs something different. And they spent £400 million on defenders, Andy, and they still feel a long way off having that Liverpool defence, which is so formidable.
And against Leicester, I mean, of course, because of the way that Leicester played, invariably they were like this, weren't they? City always dominate possession, but that makes you really vulnerable. When you're playing against Vardy, you're playing against Harvey Barnes, you're playing against those sort of guys. That can leave you in a perilous position if the ball gets turned over.
Yeah, and the point is, if you look, and you're right, Andy, this is exactly how they play. The 2 centre-backs on the middle of the pitch with all that space in behind. So basically, Vardy and Barnes, they're thinking one ball, and you think about Tielemans and Pratt, those players can play that ball.
They can.
It puts you under so much pressure, and these guys need to be world-class, Ake and Garcia, and they're not, so...
Yeah, exactly right. I just want to show a little average position graphic we have of the 2 teams at the weekend. So this is City, and look, and there you go. That's kind of pretty much always how they set up. Nothing changes there, does it?
No, and I think credit Brendan Rodgers. Normally we say his teams are really attacking teams. They decided consciously to sit off Manchester City. And look, the difference is, look at Leicester. Pretty much everybody's in their own half. They say, right, you're gonna come on to us, and they picked him off beautifully.
And the 2 players at the top of that Leicester team, Owen,
lightning quick, aren't they?
The 2 players that can hurt them and punish them the most. Also, very impressed with that guy.
Good signing. Yeah, good signing. And look, they're not even, full strength. You think about some of the issues that they have, Pereira to come back, and Ndidi to come back.
Yeah.
This Leicester team is, first of all, they're really well coached. They had a game plan. I don't think even Brendan could have anticipated scoring 5.
No, absolutely not. City, in terms of pressing, since Pep has been at the club, he's always been insistent on this press. This is from last week, this one against Wolves. He's always been insistent on this press. When they do it well, Owen, they also are very good at that.
I think that's what made Pep's team so great, is the fact that he demanded every player they press with intensity. It just seems that intensity is just waned a tiny bit. When you see Liverpool's press, you know, I think it just always works. Whereas City's, it's working, but maybe not as consistent as it has in the past.
This is them against Leicester. And now we see the ball get turned over here, it goes back. Now there's people hunting the ball down there, Owen, but there's just a little flaw in that system right there where maybe Rodrigo could have gone there, should have gone there. Should he have done that?
Well, he's got somebody in behind him, so he's looking at his shoulder. But again, Rodrigo's 6'4". You know, he's not really going to get to players quick. That's not his game. So in a way, as good a passer as he is, I think against the ball, I don't think he's as good as. And to allow him to turn, then you're in trouble. And again, these guys, this is a really attacking team. These boys, once you beat the first press with Man City, you're in. Because they leave so many players up the top of the pitch.
Yeah, and now 6 players out the game, you're vulnerable to this. That switch of play to Harvey Barnes, that was a beautiful first touch. And again, I think if he'd have had a slightly clearer picture in his mind of what to do once he got there, he could have really made something out of that, Owen. And that kind of happened time and time again, that situation. Now, Brendan Rodgers they were well coached for that. They were ready to do exactly that, weren't they?
Yeah, I think Brendan knew where City were going to be at all times. And once they turned over possession, Sir Alex used to say it as well, first pass forward, if you can. First pass forward, it can open teams up. And I thought Brendan knew that as well. And with the way that City are playing, still, like they did last season, there's so much space in behind. And if the defence isn't as good, there's no company in there, you know. And I think he tidied up a lot of those issues, as Van Dijk does for Liverpool. And I think for Pep, maybe he has to play a bit different, maybe play a bit deeper or get a bit more press on the ball, because the way they played against Leicester was a disaster.
A lot of teams against City over the last few years, since Pep's been here really, and now against Liverpool, when you watch some of the teams in the bottom half of the table, invariably, Owen, when they go back there, they just want to try and turn the opposition round. In other words, they're pretty much handing the ball back to the better teams. Now we're seeing teams like Leicester prepared to play their way out. Kasper Schmeichel is their Virgil van Dijk, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't think he gets enough credit for being as good with his feet as he is. And I think even Kasper recognises where the space is. And if you win that one, as often people do against Mendy, you're in.
3 on 2.
I mean, you think about that, Andy, as simple as that is. One switch of play, because the press is often on one side. You know, they often leave the other side free. And we've seen that. That switch, it causes so many issues. And then you're in.
Harvey Barnes again here, just a little bit more decisive at the top end of the field. Could have made something like Eric Garcia making a decent challenge. Again here, Owen, Leicester under pressure. But again, what I do like about them, look, they're leaving 3 out there. And you've got James Justin, left wing back, Timothy Castagne, right wing back. In advance of those positions, you've got a press from City, but they're brave enough to play their way around it.
They are, because we say, you know, you squeeze in, you leave one side free. City are all in there, but the passing is perfect.
And again now.
1 and 2 touch, you're in, yeah.
Almost like 4 on 2.
Yeah, and it puts so much pressure. We always say they're not good enough, but look how much pressure these guys are under. It's almost 4v2. It's impossible for them. And I'm thinking if Leicester were a bit more precise...
just roll that back there. If James Justin just does that, just a nice simple one, Harvey Barnes has to score. You can see Jamie Vardy, he's licking his lips at the prospect, but unfortunately the ball in is just not quite good enough. But that happened actually, even though City, and let's be honest, just to make a point, Owen, City had most of the ball first half. They were dominant in possession. They were playing on the halfway line. But when Leicester found a way to combat that, they looked dangerous, didn't they? They did.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing I like about Brendan. You know, he varies his tactics up. We know Pep's going to play this way. This can't happen. That Mendy's able to turn in there and turn Fernandinho. If you can't get the ball, if you're Fernandinho, you've got to foul them.
Right.
Because I know everyone moans about Pep's teams fouling, but there, look, again, that space opens up. And Pep hates that. And then you get down the sides, they got overloads, and it puts a lot of pressure on the team. Pep knows that better than anyone. He realised if you get turned in there, with all these players, look how many stay up the pitch, Andy.
Yeah.
On these clips now, we're seeing there's always 4 up the pitch. So the defence is outnumbered.
Yeah. And that was the penalty decision there. that ultimately got Leicester back in the game. Kyle Walker just, unfortunately, getting his body position, not really seeing where Jamie Vardy is, concedes the penalty, and Leicester are back in a game. City's fullbacks, Owen, I was interested to watch them at the weekend. Amazing going forward, Mendy and Kyle Walker. They give you so much. Have they almost got too much to contend with now in lots of ways? If teams are going to start playing like they do, are we asking too much of these guys, do you think, sometimes?
I think it's tough on them. I think, obviously, they can do better. I think Kyle's still one of the best. But, you know, at times they're, you know, because they're not getting any protection from any of the forward players,
right,
they're worried about being here, but then they're worried about being near their centre-backs as well.
On the cover.
They're not getting maybe the protection you think about from Rodrigo and Fernandinho that they normally would. So I just think the whole thing is collectively a tiny bit out from Pep's great teams.
Yeah. Do you think here, Owen, normally we'd have seen the ball go back there from Nathan Ake to the goalkeeper? Maybe, because if you watch right down on the bottom left-hand side of this screen, you can just see Pep Guardiola's head here. Just because that ball was booted up the line and it drops on a Leicester head, watch his reaction. You know, it's one. Why didn't we normally we'd recycle that and we'd keep the ball? But let's just focus on the fullbacks here. Obviously, Kyle Walker and Mendy. Sometimes they get accused of ball watching a little bit. Was that evident, or do you just think again they've got too many issues to deal with?
Well, I think if you look at this, you know, on paper they're in the right spot, right?
Yeah.
Marking someone. But then the issue is, you know, then they can play. You know, and there's no pressure on the ball there in midfield, and then they slide it down the channel. Really, Mendy's got his man, hasn't he?
He's in the same position.
But he's thinking, right, I got to get there, and really, I got to get near Ake. And again, if there's more pressure on the midfield, which there should be, then you know
this doesn't happen.
This doesn't happen. So, is it Mendy's fault? Is it Ake's fault? Is it the midfield's fault? I think everybody's involved. The problem is there's spaces for teams to play, and Leicester, you got to say, exploited it beautifully.
Yeah, they did indeed. Again, this is down Kyle Walker's side, and you know, you can see the two central defenders there, Ake and Garcia, are juggling with whether do we hold the line with Vardy or do we drop in?
Yeah, but if you're thinking about Walker, so he's there, but eventually so then he's going to have to go there. You know, it almost gets passed on. So he's in between two. And because that line is high, if the ball's good, as we said, forward passing, forward running, if that ball's good, you're in trouble. Mendy's trying to cover in there. But then he thinks, I might have to get out here as well. So these boys are asked to do a lot. And if they get the decision-making wrong, then
they're in trouble.
They look poor.
They're vulnerable.
But actually, I think it reflects on the whole team, really.
Yeah, this one, again, is another good point in terms... It comes out to this area. So now, all of a sudden, you can see Mendy's he's fronted up with the ball. Comes back out. Now he's asked to squeeze the ball. He's asked to stay with his man. And there, Owen, just that situation again. You know, there's a bit of ball watching going on here. You can see Nathan Ake saying, "Be careful, there's the gully."
But the thing is, as well, Mendy's got his man as he did there, switched off. Ake was there, switched off. And you think the one person I'm thinking about him at is Kompany, Vincent Kompany. He talked all these players through these situations, where to be and when, and it just feels like until they get that, like Liverpool did with Van Dijk, they might continue to have some of these issues because there's holes. There's holes in midfield, there's holes in wide areas, there's holes in the centre-back position.
Yeah.
And it's hard for Pep because I think he's trying to fix them all, but there's probably too many at the moment.
Pep's questioned the belief of his players, which is strange. It's kind of almost like a strange admission after 3 games that there's some doubts knocking around in that dressing room.
They look like they had doubts. That's one of the first times I've seen them with doubts. Think about all the penalties they gave away, Andy. They were strange. You know, they were lacking almost in a bit of belief, whether, you know, so I think Pep's right, you know, in terms of they just got to get back to their basic, what makes them great. They're still the second best team in this division, but conceding 5, you know, 3 games in is a huge blow to everybody's confidence.
First time I think he's ever conceded 5 in his career as a manager, Pep, which is incredible, really. Let's get up to Leroy Owen up in our studio. Leroy, what are the Man City fans saying after that performance at the weekend?
Well, not impressed. Let's put it that way. Andy Cabello Simon says Leicester City were perfect on and off the ball, shambolic defended by Man City. And there's one for you guys, Emmanuel Molelli. He says Mendy is not playing like a Man City player. They should sign at least 2 centre-backs. So they need to get 2 centre-backs in to lift the standard?
Wow, I mean, whether you get 2 in, you've just signed Nathan Ake. Certainly, I think they look like they need... If Laporte is going to have... I mean, I would imagine Laporte's going to be back in pretty quickly, Owen, but Ruben Diaz, they're talking about £60+ million or whatever. Is he going to be the answer?
I hope so for Manchester City, but I don't think he's a Vincent Kompany. And I think those players are probably the most priceless right now, is those centre-backs, in terms of the leadership that they bring. I think we know City are going to play that way, and the way that the style that they have, but I don't see it. I think Laporte's a great player. I think Ake's a good fill-in one, but all of a sudden you feel like there's
something missing.
You know, especially when they spend so much money, Andy, on some of these defenders. You'd love to see just go get the Van Dijks and the Alissons, the ones that change your team from being a good team to a great team. I think Pep's looking for them. But Kompany, that type is proving quite elusive.
Certainly is. Leroy, in terms of fullbacks, I know there's been a bit of a theme this weekend, hasn't there, as well?
There certainly has. I got this from Jules, and he says, if you're talking defending, what is going on with Man United? Do they need to strengthen in the fullback area? Now, it's interesting. I was watching all the football over the weekend, Andy, and they were talking about Wan-Bissaka's defending against Brighton. I'm just going to play it on here. And a lot of people were saying, look, he's much too tight. I'm just going to pause it there. Look at, I mean, he's almost holding Victor Lindelof's hand there. And you see them both there, you know, marking Trossard. And again, I'll just play it on. And I think this comes from the way he's been coached. Again, I'm going to pause it there. Now, you see, you've got the free player in that wide area, and he's tucked right in. Now, the reason why I think he's been coached like this, because he's been playing for a team like Crystal Palace, who defend in a low block or deep. And when you defend like that, what invariably happens is your wide player is asked to come all the way back in to defend in that area. But now he's at Man United, I think they've got to get on with it. You know, you sign top quality defenders so they can defend their area and allow people like Bruno Fernandes to stay in that area. So when they win the ball, then they can break quickly up the pitch. You don't want your best defenders coming back and defending in their box. And again, as I play it on here, the other reason he does this, I'm going to pause it there, is because, look at him, they're worried about these two guys here. Look at Harry Maguire in that 6-yard, on the edge of the 6-yard box. They want Harry Maguire to keep that position. And the problem is, in modern football, what's become a real problem is when the ball goes into a wide area, it's been the cutback. So what he's been taught to do is not worry about the far post man, because this wide player will come back and defend that. But what we want you to do is defend the cutback, which is really, really difficult to defend when you're getting around his box. Again, I'll just play it on fully here. And it is interesting. People having a go at him saying, look, it's poor defending, but it's just what he's been taught. And maybe he needs to unlearn this, because, look, again, I'm going to pause it there. They're man for man there. That's a good position. That's a great position. Doesn't need anybody back there helping him. We'll play it on. And as it develops into the wide area, just look how he narrows off. Now he's narrowing off. Again, worried about when it gets into that, and I'm going to pause it there. He's worried about that ball there into him. And look at this guy, all spare on the far post. Solly March, spare on the far post. Expecting someone like Bruno Fernandes to come back. And Bruno Fernandes, he's never going to come back there. He's never been taught that. So, you know, it's an interesting one. Solly March misses on this occasion, but I just think that's the way he's been taught. But when you play at the big side, I'm going to put this to you guys. If you're playing at a top club and you're a defender, you've got to defend and allow the midfield players and the front players to go and do their job.
It's a good point, that. How difficult, Owen, when you're Aaron Wan-Bissaka and you've been taught by Roy Hodgson, who is a very much a strategist. He likes his team to be very disciplined with their defensive work. How difficult to snap out of that and all of a sudden adopt different positions and a different mentality with other clubs?
Well, to come to his defence, I would say is he had no protection from Mason Greenwood, who's an unbelievable attacking player, but he didn't have Wan-Bissaka in the game at all. He never really came back, so he was overloaded, and he probably got a bit nervous in terms of getting a bit too tight. And Leroy's right, he got too tight. But I just think there's a lot of issues with United defensively, and I don't think there's a lack of communication. They didn't get out to the ball. They didn't press at any point. Bruno Fernandes was the only player really from the front six that actually pressed the ball. The rest of them were passengers. Brighton, I don't know how they lost the game. They were by far the better team. And I think for United, as good as the result was, there were a lot of question marks after, because in possession they weren't very good. Out of possession, their press was so poor. And I think, obviously, Wan-Bissaka, even for as good a defender as he is, he looked uncomfortable kind of back there because they were a bit overloaded.
Yeah. Leroy, what about a young player like Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and he's in there with some guys that he's obviously very familiar with now, but he's still maybe the the new man, the new kid on the block. He's the latest addition into that back line. How is he being dictated by more wiser, experienced players? Come here, I want you to come and help me out. And as a consequence, his own job is being neglected.
Andy, you're absolutely right, and I think that's the key as a young player. What you should be doing is telling Eric Bailly to mark. Just tell him to mark, and it does the job for you. But what he's trying to do, and because he was overloaded, as Owen said, he's trying to do 2 or 3 jobs. And he'll learn as he gets older, just by opening his mouth, to get Mason Greenwood back 10 yards to help him out, to get by tighter to his man, which will help him defend. But that comes with age. And we all know, when we played with an experienced back four, they just used their mouths most of the time. We knew where they were from just opening their mouths. We knew their position. Yeah. Aaron Wan-Bissaka isn't that yet, but as he gets older, I'm sure he'll learn that.
Yeah, good stuff, Leroy. Thanks very much. Hashtag PL fans. Don't forget, any of these questions, any of these little talking points, please get them to Leroy and we'll have the discussion right here. OK, let's get off to the Hawthorns now, because Chelsea, after spending 200+ million, that's exactly the sort of place that Frank Lampard would have expected his team to go and claim all 3 points. Slaven Bilic and his boys had other ideas.
Trepidatious new boys seeking to settle, in need of comfort, a sense of belonging, and the high-rolling, big-time capital investors with their eyes on the prize. Robinson got a shot away and scored! Oh, it's been lost by Silva of all people, and Callum Robinson's in here, and Callum Robinson doubles the Baggies lead! Herrera's corner. Furlong's header, it's 3! This is beyond astonishing. Spilicueta. Mason Mount has scored. Werner and Hudson-Odoi, and he got it back from Havertz, and Hudson-Odoi has Chelsea within 1. Aim back for Hudson-Odoi. Away by Robson-Kanu, through the crowd and in by Abraham! Chelsea have snatched it back at the last. Just another compelling Premier League drama. It's West Bromwich Albion 3, Chelsea 3.
Amazing game. Amazing game. I was actually there watching it, Owen, and it was bizarre. At 3-0 half-time, West Bromwich Albion. Wow, I was wondering. I'd love to have been a fly on the wall in that Chelsea dressing room at that particular moment. With the greatest respects to the Albion, and again, don't want to sound disparaging, brilliant effort from them at the weekend. When you put the two 11s against each other, there should only ever be one outcome here.
Oh, definitely. I mean, look, Pereira and Diangana are fabulous players, technically really, really good. Robinson had probably one of the best days he's ever had as a professional football player. But if I think about Chelsea, so much was expected. I think about Chelsea and I think, what's Frank's team? Who's in goal? Who's the centre-backs? Who's the midfield pairing? I don't know. No. It doesn't jump out at you like it does with Jurgen Klopp. And again, if you look at this, Caballero's in goal. I know they've Kepa's pretty much been dropped. They signed another goalkeeper. Christensen, Thiago Silva. That's the first time we've seen that. He doesn't really trust Alonso.
Not in a 4.
Doesn't trust him. James is a fabulous player. So I'm saying there's only really one in there that he trusts at the moment. And then the midfield balance, he's trying to find that. We think back to those great Chelsea teams. You had Carvalho and Terry and Cech, and then you had Makelele, Essien and Frank.
Drogba.
Frank's still trying to find his team.
The core.
And I think it's, the spine of his team. And I think that's why he's having some of these issues. He doesn't have the spine of the team. He doesn't have the leaders that he needs. They've spent a lot of money on really good players. Kai Havertz is a great player. But the core of the team isn't there.
Well, I mean, when you look at the bench here, look, that's the 11 he started with. You've got Kepa, you've got Jorginho, Ross Barkley, Tomori, Giroud, Hudson-Odoi, Azpilicueta. There's Pulisic injured, Hakim Ziyech, Ben Chilwell. Can you have too many? Can you have too many? Because it gives you the licence to keep chopping and changing all the time, searching for... Whereas if you haven't got as many, you just do what Slaven Bilic has got to do, and he knuckles down with 15 and comes up with pretty much an 11 that know what they're doing.
Well, that is in Frank's defence, is the fact he doesn't have his best team. So if you think about it, that's going to be James and that's going to be Chilwell. That's going to be Thiago Silva and maybe Tomori. Rudiger, he's fallen out of favour with Tomori. I like Rudiger. That would be a good pairing. Yep. And then you got Kante and Kovacic, Havertz there. That's going to be Pulisic. That's going to be Ziyech, and that's going to be Timo Werner. That's a really good team. But is it a team to push Man City or Liverpool? No. It's a really good team, but still, I think that defensively, they're going to have some issues.
he's in over 40 Premier League games, Frank Lampard has used, in 40 Premier League games, he's used over 20 different central defensive combinations. Which again, if you're chopping and changing that much, when you look at the champions team, pretty much anyone in the world watching this show right now can pretty much name it, apart from maybe one or two. Is it Henderson? Is it Fabinho? Is it, one or two you could maybe, but it's pretty much set in stone, isn't it?
Well, even a casual football fan could name Liverpool's starting 11, couldn't they?
Yeah.
And I think even Chelsea fans, they're not sure what their best team is, what their best players are. And I think we're 3 games in. I know they spend a lot of money, but still, the signs aren't there that base is there. I know he's got some world-class players, he really does, but he's got to get the base right. And I'm not sure he trusts many of them at the moment, and maybe that's why they're having some of the issues they are.
Chelsea fullbacks, I mean, again, we'll continue this theme with fullbacks, because it fascinates me where you can have someone that's so comfortable playing in a 5, and then you can have someone that looks so totally out of sorts and uncomfortable when they're asked to play in a back 4. Chelsea have had problems in the fullback area this season. This was against Liverpool at the Bridge a couple of weekends ago. Obviously, we've got Jorginho, a central midfield player, just dropping in there. It's still a back 4, but Marcos Alonso never seems to me, Owen, to know absolutely when he should go to the ball, when he should stay narrow. He's never really developed that for a very experienced player, and I've been surprised. And Reece James has issues with what's going on in these areas behind him. Watch how this develops. I mean, it was a brilliant goal from Sadio Mane and great football. There's the 1-2 with Alonso. Look, he's got done. So the ball's gone. Now, once your opposing team gets there, as the deepest fullback, now time to switch on, isn't it, and understand exactly where your man is.
I always found that one of the hardest things as a fullback, when you played as a fullback, because I was a central midfield player, but I played there a lot.
Once they get there towards the byline.
When the ball's on the other side as a fullback, I'm trying to be worried about the back 4, the line. Do I step up? I'm trying to be worried about him. I'm worried about the ball as well. So there's a lot of issues, and you need to make real-time decisions, and it's hard. And Reece's body shape is just a bit off, and you get caught. It's really hard when the ball's on the other side not to get caught ball watching.
Tell me then, so what sort of body shape should he have here? I mean, when Firmino gets beyond Alonso, so how should his body shape be there? He's quite close there. He's facing the ball. But what are you saying? Just
well, the thing is, the man's going to score, not the space, and he's worried about, and I get it, he's worried about the ball coming in there and somebody gets a tap in and everybody looks at him. So he's thinking, oh, I'll cheat, I'll get there. But in the end, rather than the ball go there, where does it come?
Yeah,
it comes back into there. So really, he's got to worry about Mane. Stay tight to Mane. He's physically stronger than Mane. If the ball gets up there and they meet halfway, bump, he can win the header or he pushes him. Problem is, he's looking at the ball and he loses sight of Mane, and great recognition from Liverpool.
Yeah,
just that bit of quality there. There's only a yard or two, Andy.
Yeah.
And you get punished. And they're tiny, tiny margins, but when you play against the top players, like we said about Liverpool knowing when and where, these guys know when and where to play the ball, and they score.
This is the difference. So against Liverpool, you can kind of understand a little bit what was going through their mind. Sorry, I'm just going to roll this forward, because this was how Chelsea conceded their first goal. So there's Marcos Alonso playing in a back 4 with Thiago, with Christensen. Reece James playing in a back 4 is almost, dare I say it, slightly in advance of where the ball is in a back 4. Any mistake here, his job has got to try and recover, because if there's a mistake, Thiago's got to get across, he's got to get across, and he's got to get in there, Owen. And I always think some of these younger fullbacks nowadays lack the responsibility required in a back 4.
Yeah, but Andy, I get that, and you're right, he's fractioning out. That header from Alonso
I agree.
Doesn't exist. I don't. Just head it down the line.
I
Take
agree.
the pressure off. Square. We always say never pass the ball square in midfield. You get picked off. He heads it into midfield.
Yeah, and now, of course, Reece James, the minute that ball is picked up in this position, he knows he's going to be in trouble.
He knows he's out of position. And I think for Frank, I feel sorry for him, because he keeps trusting the players to play, trying to find the blend. But again, Alonso makes another mistake. How easy is that to slide that in down for Robertson? And really, it looks like the situation's gone. They got the back 4 back in. They got the 2 in front. It's 6'2". They shouldn't score.
Yeah.
But between the legs, great finish. And all of a sudden, then Chelsea, you're on the back foot.
Yeah.
And then think about it. You know, then this happens. I mean,
you can't legislate?
No, you can't. So two mistakes. One from Alonso, hugely experienced. One from Thiago Silva.
I'm just going, before I go on to the next one, just want to roll that back. Just excuse me, just 1 second. I'll roll that back, Owen, because when that ball goes to Thiago, because he's such a decorated player, should Christensen have been here anyway? Should he have been a little bit deeper of his man, or should he be thinking in any way, shape or form he might miscontrol that and they might get in? Do you think that? Don't forget, he's one down. They are one down in the game.
I mean, we are talking about one of the best centre-backs of the last decade.
But everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah, they do. But look, I'm just not a fan of the stud role. You know, he tries to stud it, goes underneath him. Then, yeah, he could be in a bit better position, but he's trusting his player. You know, he's trusting his teammate that he's going to be in the right spot, as is Reece James.
Yeah, I'm just going to pause that here, just for this corner. Now, I always think in open play, when mistakes like that happen, like we just saw, sometimes you can't legislate for them, like the Thiago one. When it's a dead ball, you get a chance, and every team that plays Premier League football, there's a sheet goes up on the board before the game. It'll have your name and it'll have who you're marking.
It does, yeah.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
And the coaches will be walking around the dressing room saying, "You pick him up. Don't let him make first contact from any wide free kicks or corners." Everyone knows where they are. Marcos Alonso here is picking up Kyle Bartley. He's picking him up. So Marcos Alonso knows full well his responsibility. So why, Owen, does that ball, when it's pinged out, why does this happen? Look.
Because players, ultimately, they just chase the ball. Look, everybody's eyes are on the ball. The thing is, as well, credit Slaven Bilic. He knows that Chelsea had issues with set pieces last season. Look where he plays this ball.
Yeah, he does.
Not into where the players are. He wants the second one. He knew that they're going to be all on that side. Simple as you like, but you're right. That comes down to X's and O's on the training ground, because players often defend the first one, but that second phase one, which Slaven Bilic noticed, you know, teams don't defend that, and I think credit West Brom for exploiting that.
I just want to have a look at this little, I beg your pardon, it's not these ones, it's this one. Because first half we saw Manchester City against Leicester, right? And we saw them vulnerable in that sense where the Mendy and Walker. This was Chelsea's first half positions against West Bromwich Albion, where they were 3 down. Reece James in a back four, he's over the halfway line. For me, there's Thiago Silva, as brilliant as a player as he is, he's 36. He's not 26, he's 36. He ain't getting any better. He can only, and he's strolled every game for Paris Saint-Germain for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Playing in the Premier League is going to be a completely different. Surely these guys would have thought, do you know what? Just for the first game, I'll give him a little. We'll just make sure we don't give anything much away.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, there's far too much emphasis right there and now on Chelsea thinking they can just go and outscore everyone, and they're not good enough here.
No, and I think Thiago Silva would prefer having a bit of protection. Alonso in there, James in there.
Yeah.
You know, and there's no width. You know, so I think when there's no real natural width, we saw with Liverpool, there's natural width, so they can keep the ball. And I think if you look at the way City played and the way Chelsea played, look, there's no real width. It's from the fullbacks, and that means the fullbacks are out of position.
Yeah.
Space down the sides, which is not great for these two.
I wonder if they've watched that yesterday or this morning.
I hope not.
The Chelsea boys. Nothing worse as a player when you've had a nightmare performance and you might have even played really bad yourself, and you get in and then you see the video screens all set up, ready to go.
That.
When you have to sit there and watch it all again.
You're trying to hide under the chair, aren't you, not to get picked out.
And you're laughing at all your teammates at the mistakes that they're making.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a nightmare. Right, where are we? Back post defending, Owen. What's going on with concentration levels of fullbacks, maybe wide midfielders? You mentioned you hated being in this position when the ball's on that side. We're seeing a lot of situations coming where eventually the ball arrives at the back post. There appears to be good numbers there. Bruno Fernandes, is he marking? Is he marking here or not? Is he supposed to be?
I think he knows he's supposed to be, but he doesn't really want to be there. But because these boys are all kind of squeezed over and there's too many over there, they just get overloaded. And Solly March had a magnificent game. He was in the whole game. Honestly, you could have had 3 or 4 of those. But, and I think the attacking players don't really want to get there.
Reece James here. He's not marking anybody, so he's zoning along the 6-yard line. But anything in this area as a zonal player is your responsibility, correct?
Yeah. And you're right. Because they're not marking anyone, he just needs to drop off. just drop off. All these players aren't really doing anything. Look at that. I love that ball. It's so intelligent.
It is an intelligent
It's so
ball.
subtle, but actually, and I think Frank now, he'll be ready for that one next time around.
Matt Ritchie here at the top of the screen. He's chasing back Lucas Moura, who's very, very quick. Not easy to make that ground up, but he kind of at that point, it looks like he's got there. And then again, right at the last minute, does he just travel? Is he just ball watching? What's going on here?
That's why this ball is so difficult to defend, because you're worried about scoring an own goal. Slides it across there. He thinks, oh, there's nobody there, and then bang, it's in. So that's why defending that position when the ball's on the other side is really difficult.
Yeah. Again here from the Arsenal game last night, this happens a lot, particularly with Trent Alexander-Arnold with the quality of his crossing. But you're going to see, as this ball goes back and is eventually delivered, here comes Robertson. What's Willian doing there? Does he want to pass him on? Well, he could do maybe because there's 3-on-2 here. Could he pass him on? Should he go with him?
Because he knows he's behind. He's way behind. Robertson's got a head start. That's why Robertson runs in there. He's got to talk to him. He's got to talk to Bellerin, Holding, and Bellerin there. They don't communicate. And Willian knows. That's why your head goes down, because you know,
yeah,
that was mine.
I've let him go.
That was mine.
Yeah, indeed. Leroy, we've seen some really interesting stuff here with regards to fullbacks and defending. I know you ghosted in on the back post a few times over the years. What are the fans saying about any of this? What do you think?
Well, lots of issues around defending, Andy. Manas, who's a Liverpool fan, says not signing any centre-back is it going to derail our title challenge? Well, Manas, we did a thing on Fabinho, be able to step in there last week, and he is more than good enough to do that. Another one here says, when are we going to start questioning Pep? He spent nearly £400 million on defenders since his arrival, and he's still not able to get it right. Isn't he underperforming, Owen?
Yeah, I think you're spending £400 million on defenders. It needs to be better. And I think the thing with City and the way they play, because it's so aggressive in terms of possession, they put so much pressure on the defenders, and they get in positions where even the best in the world, I think, struggle to be in, whether it's the fullbacks or the centre-backs. So I'd love to, and I think Pep, he did actually, we saw in the Champions League where he altered his tactics, didn't he? Played a bit more defensive. He actually did it in that game when he played Fernandinho and Rodri in there. But the personnel, I don't think, is up to the level that he needs for this system. He needs a company in there, Van Dijk in there. And I think until he gets it, he's going to continue to play his way. But as we saw the way Leicester played, they punish them defensively.
Do you get the feeling, Leroy, when you're watching Pep now, are City fans feeling like that this is maybe the last year we're going to see him at Manchester City? I don't know. Sometimes I look at him now and I think, and I'm wondering if he's thinking, I've done not as much as I would like to do. Clearly, he would want to win the Champions League, but maybe whether or not he's feeling now that his message and his way isn't perhaps going to be enough.
Do you know what, Andy? While I was watching that performance against Leicester, I was thinking he's trying to inflict a system on a group of players who can't deliver.
Right.
Has he just got... I mean, Owen pointed out, Rodrigo, and Fernandinho, in that midfield, trying to press. The first 45 minutes against Wolves, the best pressing I've seen in a long time. The second half against Wolves and against Leicester was the worst.
Yeah.
And so I just feel that he's got so much going on in his mind, and he's wanting to inflict these systems onto these players instead of looking at the group of players, because you only had 13 players fit, and saying, what's the best way for these players to play? And I think the players certainly didn't deliver against Leicester. But it's interesting, someone who did deliver, Andy, is Stuart Dallas. This is from Nick. He said, explain the role of Dallas for Leeds. How integral is he to Bielsa's system? I'm just going to get him up here now. And, Stuart Dallas is a player who came from Brentford 5 years ago. He's 29 years old now. So he's plied his trade in the lower leagues. And I'm just going to play it on here. And I'm just going to pick him up here. I'm just going to pause it here. If you see him down on the team sheet, you'll see him in the midfield role. And what he's doing here, you'll just see him just coming out into this fullback area, because Harrison is out of your picture now. It's just moving into the wide left area. So he's just trying to balance things off. I'll play it on here. So as it plays on, you'll see him just telling him, go, get up the pitch, I'll come and deal with this area. Now, his role in Bielsa's side is basically, I'm going to pause it there, it's just to balance the side off. Now, all of a sudden, you've seen there, they've got the back four in place, even though the ball's going forward. You've got Phillips sat in midfield. You've got the front three and then you've got your midfield players. And just he understands how to balance the side off, and he does it brilliantly. He does it with real energy as well.
And again, I mean, they've been so impressive, Leroy, Leeds, haven't they?
Yeah.
And these boys can't express themselves if they're not given a licence to go and feel like they can gallop forward and make the ground up.
Yeah, exactly. But the key is, as you said, Andy, is that he expresses himself. But under Bielsa, as I said, he's been at least 5 years. I didn't see this in him, by the way. It's since Bielsa's come in. Now, you see me in more or less exactly the same position as you saw him in the first clip. This time, Harrison is in that left-back position, so he understands now that he's in a good situation. And what he does really well, he's an excellent athlete, is he just sniffs the space in front. This time, I'm just going to pause it there. You see the two wide players, the two front players. Bamford's gone across, it's Costa on that wide area. So there's space. There's obviously a run on, that's where the space is, in behind that defence. And he sniffs it out. Yeah. And he's brilliant at it, really good at it. Unfortunate not to finish this one off, but, you know, 29 years old, he's playing his best football. He's as fit as I've ever seen him. And he's the key. I mean, he's the one player you sometimes don't notice, but he balances everything off for Leeds.
Like a lot of the Sheffield United players, Leroy, under Chris Wilder, we weren't particularly aware of a lot of them when they first arrived, but certainly over the weeks ahead, we're going to start to hear a lot more of Stuart Dallas and people like him, I'm sure.
Absolutely. I know, you know, being a midfield player, sometimes Owen would have played the game, and then all the players who've got the goals and the assists, they get all the plaudits. But the manager will go in the dressing room and give him a pat on the back. That's Stuart Dallas. You know, you've got Costa, you've got Harrison, you've got Bamford scoring the goals. They're talking about Phillips in midfield, who drives things in midfield. But he's the one. Look at Phillips in all this space, this and this midfield. But it's because of his forward runs. You know, he's not getting the ball a lot. He makes a lot of those runs, and Phillips gets on the ball and he plays his wonderful balls forward. But the space is created by people like Stuart Dallas, and he was absolutely wonderful at the weekend.
Great stuff, Leroy. OK, coming up in the final part of the show, we are going to discuss the handball situation. Yes, it's confusing, it's disappointing, and players aren't really sure of exactly what is handball anymore and what isn't.
It's time for some Roland Garros rivalry. Bienvenue à Paris, Stefanos Tsitsipas. The young Greek has become a regular in the world's top 10. At just 22, he already has multiple ATP titles to his credit. He reached the fourth round in Paris in 2019 and went on to claim the end-of-year ATP finals. An undeniable star of the future, he'll be targeting another good showing in Paris. Tsitsipas clearly won over many new fans at last year's tournament, judging by the number of unread emails in his inbox.
I'll never get used to that.
He also revealed his dream card to his followers with much excitement.
The acceleration of this thing, wow, it's insane.
Catch Stefanos Tsitsipas gunning for Roland Garros glory live on your World of Champions Supersport. This player profile was served up by Prudential Investment Managers.
On Saturday,
it's a big lesson for us, and we will get a lot better.
A dramatic 3-goal turnaround secured the Blues a point at the Hawthorns. Can they build on that momentum when the Eagles flocked to Stamford Bridge? Then
I feel bad for the guys. We have to try to see what you have to do to avoid it in the next time.
After conceding 5 goals for the first time as a manager, Pep Guardiola and his humble citizens visit West Yorkshire.
Harrison's ball in, Bamford with the header, and Leeds have surely won it.
Chelsea play Crystal Palace. Everton face Brighton. Leeds tackle Manchester City. And Newcastle host Burnley. The 2021 Premier League season on a dedicated SuperSport Premier League channel. We have the world's best football. Stay connected to DSTV. This broadcast is proudly brought to you by Discovery.
Lahore has scored, and it's a Brummie boy who has broken the deadlock.
One particular game against Wigan, to be fair, where he absolutely tortured them. I mean, I've never seen someone torture a team as badly in my life as what he did to them. I mean, just ran at them, they couldn't stop him. Scored a great goal as well, set my goal up as well, and he was just electric that day. And I think he got an England call-up off the back of that game. But yeah, I remember that game. That's one game I remember thinking, wow, this guy is electric.
Oh, beautifully done, Fowler. Wrong footing Staunton, and look at the shot! Oh! Screamer! 2-0! This is irresistible stuff. Steve Staunton, the former Liverpool favourite, left for dead here by Robbie Fowler. And what a finish!
Welcome back to the final part of the analysis show, where we are going to discuss the handball rule, the handball situation really, which we are seeing within our game right now. Players have been speaking about how confused they are. They don't quite understand it. They're not quite sure why the rules and the laws have been changed. Let's just focus on the ruling itself, the wording of the ruling. Here we go. So it says the hand or arm is clearly away from the body and outside of the body line. Okay, player clearly leans into the path of the ball. The ball has got to travel some distance. These are factors which are considered for every penalty decision. The ball touches the hand or arm that is clearly raised above the shoulder, a bit like the Eric Dyer one, for instance. Player falls and the hand or arm is extended laterally, so you can't throw an arm out to block something, or vertically away from the body. So, look, so there are some of the technicalities that every referee has to consider with every time the ball bounces in a 6-yard area and hits an arm. So how much sympathy, first and foremost, do you have with officials?
Well, I think everybody looks at the officials because they're reffing the game and blames them for getting the decisions wrong. But actually, it's not the referees. They're just implementing the IFAB, basically their interpretation of the way the rule's been written. And I actually feel sorry for the referees because we're 3 games in and the referees, everybody's looking at Roy Hodgson and Steve Bruce, everybody's looking at the refs, Mourinho, but actually it's not the refs, they're just implementing what they've been told the way it should be. Anyway, this isn't really clear for me, still.
Still a bit too vague.
Outside the body line, what's the body line? Well, first, I get that, but when I stand, I don't stand like this because that's completely unnatural. So your arms are outside your body line, Andy. Yeah. So you're supposed to stand like this? That's not an athletic position.
Do you know, now that's an interesting question you raised there, because I'm wondering how many teams this week on the training ground, as we speak, are starting to coach their players that you can't all of a sudden just use your arms to balance yourself in the box, because if it hits your hand, it's going to get given. Forget about intent. That's almost gone out of the window now, whether you deliberately intend to handle the ball, which was kind of always one of the first considerations for a referee. That's not really any longer the case. It's if it hits your hand and your arm is up here, out there a little bit, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be conceding penalties every week. It's a few examples. Let's give you a few examples of some of these handball decisions. This, to me, is one of the most bizarre ones I've seen. And by the way, I just want to reiterate, this isn't a Premier League decision to change this ruling or anything. This is the Premier League, like everybody else, is following IFAB and FIFA protocol here. So this isn't the new handball rule across the globe, and we're just following it. But you see this one for Joel Ward. How on earth can he do anything about that, Owen?
Andy, he's just trying to turn around. Because the
just going to let these roll. Let roll.
Because the ball's headed behind him, he's just trying to turn around.
This was earlier on in the season. This was Victor Lindelof.
I mean, Andy, they're all as bad as each other. Everyone is like, if I was a player thinking, no way is that a penalty. Yeah. No way are these penalties.
That one just hits Matt Doherty's hand after a ricochet. Let's watch them again. Do that again. I just want to see those ones again, because, and I'll try and slow them down a bit this time, Owen.
First of all, he's in a great position, Joe Ward.
Right.
Now he's balancing himself, Andy.
Yeah, he's balancing. You're bound to have your arms a little bit out, aren't you?
It's balanced. So basically, when the ball's behind his left, he's just trying to turn. Watch what my arm does if I turn.
Yeah.
You know, it's impossible. Joe Ward's face after they gave the pen, he gave this, like, cheeky smile. And I felt for him, because as a player, you would have done exactly what he did. I mean, this one is impossible for Eric Dyer.
He gets a little bump as well from Lascelles in the middle of his back.
It's behind his back, Andy.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't. Those high ones, I think we understand. They can't really be there. Yeah. Those extended ones, we understand they can't be there. This, I mean, I feel sorry for Lindelof. What's he supposed to do?
Yeah. I don't know. I really don't know how you're supposed to, what you're supposed to do. Look at Harry Winks, hands behind his back. Bang, bang, little ricochet, hits Matt Doherty's hand, and a penalty is given. I'm going to ask you in a minute, Owen, actually, about what you do to try and combat this now, how coaches are going to try and help their players in this situation. But first up, let's hear to some of the reaction from the managers after this weekend's handball decisions.
These days, we're in a situation where even we, the experienced coaches and players, we can't understand what really constitutes a handball and what doesn't. And certainly the idea, I've just seen it on the screen, you know, this constitutes handball. It's such an absolute nonsense that I don't want to profit by it. I don't particularly want to lose by it either. But there's no doubt that it's killing the game of football.
What's the chances of the law being changed mid-season? Because if the stakeholders complain enough, will or can the Premier League change it?
Difficult to say, Alan, because, you know, this is a FIFA rule. You know, they've taken control of this. Whether they will say something themselves, whether they will say, you know, the tolerance level could be raised a little, I don't know. At the moment, they've stuck hard and fast to the hand above the shoulder, hand away from the body.
But the Premier League don't have to go along with it, or do they? Can the Premier League change it to suit themselves?
They can't change to suit themselves. They've got to apply the laws as written down by IFAB. And that's the problem, Alan, that once IFAB say, you know, this is handball, you know, the referees are in that position where they've got to apply it. As I say, it's not something I've watched this season over the 3 rounds so far and really enjoyed, because I've seen things that when I played and when I refereed wouldn't have been like that. It's frustrating to watch. But it's equally frustrating for the referees on the pitch, because I'm sure Peter Banks went to that and thought, well, when I started out, that would never be handball, but now I'm directed to give handball, and that's the position they're in.
Look, the handball rule's been around for years, and if it's deliberate handball, then yes. But the decisions are just, they are, for me, ruining the spectacle. It was great for us today, of course, but we have to be brutally honest that not 1 or 2 of them will go against us. So I think we have to get together as the managers, coaches, wherever it is, to go to the Premier League and say this must stop.
Yeah, you can sense frustration really on the faces of Roy Hodgson and Steve Bruce. I'm wondering, those guys this morning, so on the training ground with their respective defences, trying to make sure that they tighten everything up. What are they saying to their players now about the current situation with handball, that if it strikes your hand in the box, there's every chance, whether he meant it, didn't mean it, it's going to be a penalty? Yeah,
but Andy, that's ridiculous. Harry Winks has got his arms behind his back. He's actually trying to...
Yeah, well, he's rushing out to the ball like that.
That's what I mean. So that I don't think that's serious. I don't think that's serious to ask a player to play football with his arms behind his back.
Is this a player that's been coached? Watch Matt Doherty here in the game at the weekend against Newcastle for Spurs. Watch him. Right. Now, that's never been a position a defender takes up against a winger, has it, ever?
Well, it's a position, but it's something that happens in life where you don't really want to be with your hands tied behind your back. And that's... No. the police have got hold of you. That shouldn't happen on a football pitch. If he takes a touch, he's not in bounds.
No.
I feel sorry for the players, because the manager's going to say, lads, you got to defend like this. But the boys are going to say, my arms are in a natural position, boss. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? They're just here.
Are we going to see a player, a winger, a clever winger, walk up to a fullback in the box and stop him, settle him down, and then flick it up and just toe it onto his arm?
Yeah, well, I think we're starting to see a bit of that already. That Gineppo one there, I think, against Spurs. Yeah. I mean, that wasn't far off, was it? And if you think about, you might have free kicks where there's going to be 5 men on the wall, 10 arms to hit. Rather than trying to score, you can just pick one of the arms to hit at. You know, it's getting... I think we're 3 games in, and I think the Premier League will be onto the IFAB with a lot of emails. I think the managers will be onto the Premier League to saying, right, lads, you've got to sort this out. But it's not the Premier League's really, is it? It's the IFAB in terms of the way they've set the rule up. And I'd be surprised if we didn't see some alteration or leeway. The refs have been consistent and keep giving it because that's the way the rule's been written.
And we want refs to be consistent, don't we?
Yeah, we do. But the problem, I think, with the way it's written from IFAB, it's flawed. We've seen that 3 games in, it's flawed. Too many penalties, too many soft ones. Managers been in the game for decades, Andy, and they're pulling their hair out. Yeah. They don't know what a handball is. That can't happen.
Let's get up to Leroy Owen in our studio. Leroy, what's the fans' reaction to this?
Well, Sayo G says, I think players just need to get used to the new handball laws. It's frustrating, yes, because it's new. I think in time, players, defenders, and in particular, will need to get used to putting their hands behind their backs in the box. Joey says, we've seen 20 penalties, only 6 have been given as handball so far. The other 16 have been tackles. It's just poor defending. And Nick says, would the handball rule have changed the way you guys played in the game?
Would you, Lee, as a striker, are you going to look for that? Maybe when you're heading the ball now, you're going to head it onto a defender's hand?
I don't think you've got time to think like that, Andy. In the box, you're thinking about scoring a goal or setting up. Are you really, as the ball's coming across, going to say, oh, I'm going to just head it against his hand? I'm not too sure about that. But, you know, I think it would be... Look, nothing's perfect, as Sayo said.
No, indeed. Owen, final thoughts on that? You think we will see some change?
I think we're going to see changes, yeah. I think we need a bit of a change there, and I think we're going to get one.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Owen, for all of your thoughts today. Thank you as well. Don't forget, #PLFans. That's where you can take part in the analysis show. We do want to see you again, of course, very, very soon. Enjoy your Premier League football. Take care. Thanks for watching.
I remember how curious I was. I loved learning. It was obvious I had big plans for my future. What wasn't obvious was how I could make it happen. But I found a way, with a loan from Direct Access.
SMS your SAID number to 40101 to apply for a loan of up to 200,000 Rand. Direct Access. With us, you can.
South Africa will be desperate to right the wrongs from their 57-0 defeat.
I was thinking to myself, maybe, it's time to move on.
Of the ball. 18 months ago, no one would have given this team a chance.
A country that so desperately needs to smile collectively has been given an emphatic reason to do so tonight.
See us winning the World Cup, lifting the World Cup. I believe it strongly.
Wanda Diamond League.